right. How's everyone doing? Woo! All right, we got to continue this energy. So first off, thank you again to Solutions House, to Wellcome Trust, to Futerra for putting this together. And I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to be having today. So I'm an emergency medicine doctor, and I'm just going to stop because the question I have been getting all week is, yes, the pit actually does represent our experience in the emergency department, and I highly recommend watching it. So I'll just get that out there now. But I would say that the one thing of my practice that I am not seeing represented in TV and movies is how climate change is increasingly showing up in my patients and in my exam rooms more and more. Now, whether that is the elderly man who didn't have cooling and lived in a top floor apartment and presented to my emergency department with a core temperature of 107 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you from across the pond. And that's a diagnosis of heat stroke, which is a life-threatening form of heat illness. Or the young girl who showed up with an asthma attack from wildfire smoke that traveled across the borders in our interconnected world and led her to my ED. Or the young professional who had such severe allergies because of the rising pollen levels that they weren't able to go to work. So as a fellow solutionist, that's what I'm leaning in with collaborators to figure out how we can transform how we care for patients to build resilience. But we all know from our lived experience that, and especially in this current moment, goes unsaid here, that the solutions we know work aren't getting implemented fast enough. And we need to create new interconnected solutions by bringing diverse minds together like what we're going to hear today. Now, before I introduce, I feel like we are setting ourselves up for one of those, these people walked into a bar kind of joke. So you have an actress, a climate scientist, a comedian, and a mayor, and a doctor. You get them on stage. What do you get? Well, spoiler alert, I hope that you walk away thinking that climate solutions are not boring. And much, much more. So with that, I'm going to introduce the panelists very briefly. You can Google them for all of the details and depth around each of these comments in the order that they'll be speaking. So first is Alisha Wainwright. She is an actress, director, podcast host, and former scientist. Of note, she currently hosts When Science Finds a Way, a podcast hosted by Wellcome. Next is Kate Marvel. She is a climate scientist and one of our premier science communicators working today, and she has a new book out called Human Nature, 9 Ways to Feel About Our Changing Planet. And next is Chuck Nice, who is a veteran of stand-up comedy with a rich entertainment history. Currently, he hosts Brain Games on the Road, which is on Nat Geo and Disney+, and is a co-host of Star Talk with Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. So to kick off our discussion, they're going to share a climate solution, and we're going to start with you, Alisha.
Hi, everyone. I have a photograph that hopefully will pop up, and we're going to talk about it. Okay. So this is my front yard in January. I live in Los Angeles. And it's a bad photo because, the light. But there's my dog. His name is Moose, kind of in the center there. And in the back is my car. Because at that time, I was currently in the process of packing all of my worldly possessions into it. He had no idea. He was just posing for the photo. And then in the back, you see the smoke that we inhaled that day and days and weeks and months afterward. And I know this is super heavy, sorry, but thankfully everything was fine and I was able to go back to my place. That wasn't the case for a lot of other people. And I felt so frustrated because I feel like every few months I'm hearing about a wildfire, not only in California, but just globally. And I kept thinking there has to be a solution. So I'm proposing a simple solution. We should light more fires. Okay, guys, so I'm not a pyromaniac or anything like that, but think about it. Small, controlled burns, called prescribed burns, are a way to effectively reduce biomass and create situations where fires like this don't occur. Prescribed burns are actually evolved from something called a cultural burn, which was an indigenous practice, and still is an indigenous practice, where people in a community would come together during certain times of the season when things sort of align, and they would have these small burns. And the United States, as well as parts of Canada, they banned them. And for a long time, we didn't have that as a solution. The issue with wildfires is not only do you get asthma and, you're sort of like, I don't want to call it surface level things, but, the sort of things you think about. But the particulate matter of smoke is so small that it can get into your blood. And it's so small that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And in California, it's not just wildfires, it's not just trees and grass. It's 1970s houses filled with like lead and plastic and garbage that's being just tossed into the air. So this solution comes from this very simple practice that's been done for hundreds of years. And just recently in California, in 2022, they lifted the ban on cultural burns. And even still, California does not practice prescribed or cultural burns nearly enough. And so we're kind of in this paradox, right? So these small, good fires can prevent these horrible big fires. So my solution is to encourage you to not be afraid of fire. Obviously, it's a scary thing. I mean, come on. But I mean, don't be afraid of the concept of a prescribed burn. I think people have a little bit of fear. Hello. Oh, no. Just to conclude my answer and then obviously introduce our other panelists, I just want to say, don't be afraid of fire. Don't be afraid of the concept of it, because at the end of the day, they protect our homes, they protect our health, and they protect our dogs. So that's my solution.
Yay. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you so much. Well, I have the honor and privilege of introducing our latest edition. Thank you so much. And yes, traffic has been insane in the city. So Mayor Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr is the mayor of Freetown with a background as a finance professional who has adopted an inclusive, data-driven approach to addressing climate-related challenges in her city. And has actually also served as the co-chair of C40 Cities, which we might dive into. And so, yeah, excited to dive in. So thank you, Alisha, for sharing that. And first off, I have to say, as somebody on the East Coast who has a lot of personal connections in your city, I mean, I was looking at those horrific apocalyptic scenes and texting with people and just horrifying stories. And I love, as we really lean into the themes of this panel of interconnected solutions and storytelling and the power of health as that common ground, I'm just curious, how have you seen the experience collectively of LA and your colleagues kind of going through that experience shape how climate solutions are being talked about now?
Well, I think what's interesting is, people talk about climate change and they talk about the heat. And heat obviously causes or is a amplifier to how bad the fires get, right? It gets so hot that the water in these areas evaporate. It makes it basically just tinder, combined with the fact that we are not managing the land well. So then when the fires go, they go very intensely. And so I think just colloquially talking with friends and hearing on the news, people just want to blame climate change, which is just so big. It's such a big thing. I understand it's something to be blamed, but it makes the solution so much harder because you can't technically do anything as you yourself to stop a fire that could potentially burn down your neighborhood. So I think the most practical tool that I think people need to start having a conversation around is the land management, because that is something we can actually do. And I think it's like a galvanizing thing for me, because I'm tired of people feeling like it's a flippant conversation, climate change, because there's nothing we can do about it. There's so many solutions. This solution that I'm presenting has been around for so long, and now we're just starting to revisit it in California and other places. So I think people are just starting to not only become aware of things beyond just climate change that are causing these problems. Also, a lot of people in LA didn't know that the Palisades is a historic fire corridor. So fires historically happen there. And so if you're not properly managing that space, when a fire comes through, it can cause devastation to homes, create the smoke that we all breathe, and make us sick.
Yeah, well said. Tagline, fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
All right, Kate, you're next.
Yeah, so I feel a little bit intimidated being on a panel with these amazing people because I'm a scientist. It is not my job to talk to people or be personable at all. And you know what? I'm going to lean into it. We're going to do some science, okay? So let's do the science of how right now we generate the vast majority of our electricity. 99.99% of all of the energy on Earth, everything except the minuscule percent that we generate by nuclear reactions. Basically, everything comes from the sun. And the way that we generate energy right now, the bulk of our energy, is this. We let the sun shine on growing things. Those growing things use photosynthesis to make more of themselves. They make their own food from sunlight. It's amazing. Photosynthesis is effectively magic. And eventually, those things that photosynthesize, those plants, they die. They either die of natural causes, they get eaten, the things that eat them die. And the point is, everybody dies with the remnants of their last meal still in their stomachs, or whatever the equivalent of a stomach is for a plant. Fast forward hundreds of millions of years, we dig up those things and we set them on fire. And when we set them on fire, that liberates that hundreds of millions of years old solar energy, which we then usually use to boil water, which we then use to make steam, which we then use to drive a turbine. So when you think of fossil fuels, you can think of them as solar energy, but stupid. And so my climate solution is, don't be stupid. We basically have many choices for how we can generate electricity. We can use solar energy, wait hundreds of millions of years, set it on fire, add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, make our planet warmer, increase fire weather, increase heat waves, all these negative consequences. Or we can just use the solar energy to move electrons around directly. We know how to do that. And that is, right now, the cheapest way of generating electricity in history.
That's right.
Wind energy is also solar energy. Wind is just moving air. The reason air moves is it's moving from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. The reason there are areas of high pressure and low pressure to begin with is that the sun doesn't shine equally all over the globe. So wind energy is solar energy, but not stupid. And so my climate solution is to look at the things that we use fossil fuels for, knowing that fossil fuels are just millions of years old solar energy, and think, where can we more directly harness the energy of the sun? So I've got a slide to show. Next one. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I am a climate scientist. I'm a physicist. My day job is at NASA. They have asked me to say that NASA does not approve of anything I say ever. Please do not, especially now. But in general, we physical climate scientists, we have a communication problem, right? Because we say, okay, we can do all of these things. We can transition our energy system. We can transition our transportation system. We can use our land differently. We can heat and cool our houses differently. We can cook differently. And we do all of these things, and it's going to be really, really hard. And basically what we get is a future that sucks less than the future we would have had otherwise. And that is not an incredible rallying cry, right? Like, everybody get together, we can make the future slightly less bad, and anyway, you won't really notice the difference between the really bad future and the just kind of bad future for several decades. And the thing is that climate solutions, like not burning fossil fuels, like not setting stuff on fire, they have what we call co-benefits. And those co-benefits show up immediately. you shut down a coal plant, you start seeing the health benefits of not having that polluting coal plant immediately. The pollution, the particulate matter, the stuff that makes us sick and makes our air dirty, that gets washed out essentially the next time it rains. And so we start to see the benefits of climate solutions show up earlier than we see the benefits of climate action necessarily. So this is from the dearly departed National Climate Assessment, which I was a chapter lead on. We released this in 2023. It has been taken down off the official government website, but if you go to climate.us, we put it back. And what you can see is that how much the United States warms, how much everywhere warms, depends on the choices that we make today. That was the top line finding of the National Climate Assessment, is that the future is still very much in human hands. But what we wanted to emphasize was right here. Action to limit future warming can reduce risks, but it also gives you benefits. It gives you economic benefits, it gives you health benefits, it gives you karma benefits, and those benefits show up immediately.
Woo.
Yeah.
Round of applause for that. So when is your national tour where you're going to go to every city and have these conversations?
Just say, stop being stupid.
Don't be stupid. But it's interesting. I mean, when you talked about your path to be a climate scientist, in your book, and then that chapter Surprise, you thought climate, or you should say you thought science was boring, which is relevant for this title of the panel that we're using. And you actually were interested in making potentially bad movies. And so I'm just curious, how does that journey sort of inform your talk of solutions now?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I really hated science. I hated science because I would go to physics class and they would be like, let's roll a ball down an inclined plane. And I could not conceive of being the type of person who would be interested in a ball rolling down an inclined plane. And I have to say, I, to this day, am not interested in the ball rolling down an inclined plane. And so I thought science was boring. I did not think it was exciting. I thought it was for boring people. And then when I was in college, I had to take a survey class just to satisfy a requirement. And I was like, oh, sure, fine. And I took Introduction to Astronomy. And it blew my mind. I was like, wait, there's a black hole in the center of the galaxy and nobody told me? Like, there was a big bang, the universe is expanding. This is what science is. This is what physics is for. So I abandoned my dream of making terrible movies because I don't like good movies. I grew up watching really, really, really bad movies, and I have an affection for like Jean-Claude Van Damme. But I became a scientist. I did my graduate work in theoretical astrophysics, so basically the study of the entire cosmos. And then I kind of realized that this is the only part of the cosmos that's any good. And so I got really interested in studying the Earth, and that's where I've landed, and I feel really, really lucky to be able to do that.
It's full circle. Yeah. And help all of us also believe science is not boring, solutions are not boring. So yes, tagline, don't be stupid. All right. Mayor, yes, please.
I switched places with the mayor, and I may have, because there's media attached to each presentation, I may have screwed up the guys back there. So if you're ready for the mayor.
They're giving the thumbs up.
You're good for that? All right. Because, you know, they love to blame comedians for everything. And when this was over, they'd have been like, yeah, Chuck, you just messed up the whole show. So.
Well, Chuck, I'm on a handheld mic, so you were safe. Climate solutions that aren't boring. I want to pick up on what I was hearing as I came in. So I'm from Freetown, Sierra Leone, which for those of you who don't know is a small country on the west coast of Africa. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because when we talk about solutions, we have to understand that everybody's context is different. In the first place, as a continent, Africa contributes less than 4% of greenhouse gas emissions. So all of everything we've been talking about is not our fault. I'm looking over there. and over there. But the truth of the matter is it's affecting everybody. And it's affecting countries in the global south, developing world, even more. But it's not just the global, it's also the local. So people say climate change, and you think of emissions, you think of global warming. And what I find is that the impact of it can be quite circuitous. So one of the things that we've experienced in Freetown in Sierra Leone is that global warming, from the global perspective, extreme weather events, higher temperatures, messing up the rainfall, means that our rural population, 60% of whom are subsistence farmers, have found their crops failing. Because the rain doesn't come when it should come, or if it comes when it shouldn't come, then you can, within 1 or 2 years, find yourself completely unable to continue your livelihood. So people flock to Freetown, to the capital, to make a better life. We've seen our population increase from 1 million people in 2015. It's now estimated to be 2 million by 2028. That's massive. And that massive increase puts huge pressure on the natural environment, deforestation. So global warming is causing deforestation as opposed to deforestation causing global warming in our case. But what does that also mean? That pressure comes with the pressure of everybody living. And you talked about, one of you talked about energy. Yes, it was you. It was you, Kate. You talked about energy for boiling water, for cooking, and so on. And indeed, that's what energy is used for. But where 82% of your population have wood as the only source of cooking fuel, that deforestation becomes, exacerbated now by people using it for wood. So, climate solution. Freetown, the tree town. Planting 1 million trees. A target we set ourselves in 2020. We're now at 1.2 million trees, and we've set ourselves a target of 5 million trees by 2028. But what makes it a fun solution, that wasn't the fun bit. That was the boring bit. What makes it a fun solution is the fact that every tree is individually tagged. And those trees now are job creation. So we tag the trees, they're uploaded onto a digital platform, and from that digital platform, we have growers, young people, up to 3,000 in communities who look after the trees, and they get paid as the trees are growing using that platform. So that's the cool part. Now, you can grow trees, and you'll still have the pressure of people coming, and you'll still have the pressure of people needing to cook. Nobody can afford gas, or very few people can afford gas. We don't produce gas. So what do? We stumbled on this solution. We didn't go out there to do it. But it was another climate solution, but was linked to health, and that is wastewater treatment. We constructed a wastewater treatment plant in 2019, 2020. And very simple technology, but the long and short of it, the stuff that comes when you flush ends up in our wastewater treatment plant, and now we're converting that into briquettes. So briquettes are being used as an alternative for cooking, which is reducing the pressure on the environment, reducing the pressure on the trees. So that is the cool part. Now, when we started this, it was manual. And in order for us to scale and actually replace commercially the availability, or to replace the charcoal with available briquettes, has needed us to industrialize this. It's needed us to mechanize this. And we've taken a bit of time, but we finally, by the end of October, will have machines in place that will enable us to produce enough briquettes to actually take them into market and keep our trees as trees and the stuff that comes from the toilets as our cooking fuel.
All right.
That's it.
Woo! I love it. And I think, do you have a clip? Do you want to show a clip of that?
Did I bring a clip?
Yes.
Did the team bring a clip?
Yeah.
Great. Love it.
Let's roll the
When
clip.
my team works, I'm happy.
Even small number of people can have an impact.
Welcome to Del Carmen. This is my home.
Morning, around 7:15.
Freetown's changed so much since I was a child.
To sit there and watch areas be incinerated, they'd never recover to what they were before.
More than 35 Celsius degree every day.
People are suffering from flooding, disasters, landslides, mudslides.
He's inhaling the toxins. I'm inhaling the toxins.
People are hungry. They lost their jobs. There's no water. How do you feed everybody?
When I become anxious, I just remind myself that I can simply come here.
I think what's most important is trying to change the society. That is where the impact on the climate is the biggest.
Efforts to restore nature save lives.
It's the citizens that have the real power.
We've seen an amazing shift in our country's sense of what's important. Rewilding, regenerating, it's an amazingly healthy thing to do.
You know how sometimes when people are afraid of doing something, they just need someone to start first.
What I do here, it affects everywhere. The world. We need the world to create a better world.
We're not alone in this. We've really got to act in a way that's different.
I'd rather live now when the change is possible.
Excellent.
Well, so powerful. I have seen that clip before, and it still gets me every time. I'm just really struck by the interconnectedness of our solutions, but also the interconnectedness of us as a planet. And there's kind of two quotes that really stood out to me from that. I mean, the first is when people are afraid of doing something, they need someone to start it first. And the second one is we need to act in a way that's different. And I think you especially bring a really rich and needed perspective as someone who is not in the US and recognizing we're facing very unique challenges right now. And also, though, through your work with C40 Cities as the co-chair and like working with cities across the globe. And I know in my experience this week, there are so many leaders of cities around the city right now who are just desperately seeking that path forward. So what advice would you give as they really seek to keep advancing solutions?
Well, I think I go with that quote, people don't know what to do or feel unable to do something until someone does it first. And as leaders of cities, we're on the front line. We're seeing the action. We're seeing the devastation. Every single clip that you saw, every single experience that you have and you've experienced has a mayor there, a city leader there, who is being looked up to take action. But the good news is we can take action. 80% of cities are taking greater actions in climate than the national governments. That's a statistic and that's a fact. But what do we need? Greater collaboration, access to finance, and to continue to embed the work that we're doing in our communities. So I think there's been a lot of interesting news this week, a lot of interesting sort of comments, but as I said somewhere else yesterday, there's nothing that can shift a narrative more than action. And cities are taking action over ambition. And I think that's just something we can all continue to do. Scientists are, activists are, actresses are, and comedians definitely are.
Thank you, yes. And with that, Chuck, over to you.
Hi. What do you want?
What is your climate solution that's not boring?
My climate solution, dovetailing on what the mayor said, I think we should put up a Nobel Prize for the person who solves climate, and our president will get on it lickety-split. So, no, my solution is communication in a way that resonates. So I'm sure everybody has heard this, and we say it all the time. We're all storytellers. We're storytellers. We're not, okay? Sorry. You suck at selling stories, most people. You ever hear most people try to tell you a story? You know, seriously. Yeah, man, so the other day, and then we went down, wait a minute, no, it was Tuesday, and no, hold on a second. There are people who are great at telling stories. Many of you are probably in this room. What we are tuning forks that reverberate with stories. Stories cause us to vibrate. And that's what people are trying to say when they say, we're all storytellers. What they're saying is, stories actually resonate with every single one of us. So if you want to find the vibration of who we are as human beings, you cannot do that without stories. And I'm not necessarily talking about string theory for anybody who's I'm sorry, went too far with the science, see? Kate got it. Anyway, Kate's laughing, so it was funny. So the idea is, if you look at every year, Yale and George Mason University come out with the Climate Communications Report. And every year it says the same thing. The most important thing that we can do about climate change is talk about it. Who talks about it? No one. No one talks about climate change. Try talking to somebody about climate change. And they will look at you like you said something like, oh man, I can't believe they're being so hard on Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy. Like, yeah, and don't get me started on Bill Cosby. Like, you know, that's the way people look at you when you try to bring up climate change. What we have to do is move the issue to a place where it becomes a commonplace discussion without being politicized. The fossil fuel industry has done a brilliant thing. They have politicized science. So now it's up to your opinion. It's not up to Kate, who spends her entire life studying this thing so that she can bring you true information that is peer-reviewed and empirical. It's no longer up to her. It's about how you feel about the subject. That is a problem. That is where storytelling can shift the narrative and the dynamic so that people understand, like, oh yeah, that bullshit, that's bullshit. See, that's bullshit. Right? And that's what we have to do. We have to get to a place where people are able to resonate with the story of climate solutions. And I love that you said I'm a solutionist. That's what I am from now on. It's just a solutionist. And that's what we need to do. Forget activism. I mean, it works, but it doesn't reach people who don't want to be reached. Solutionist, that's a whole different story, you know? And so my whole thing is bring climate to comedy, which I work with inside the Greenhouse, University of Boulder, Colorado as well. And we look at ways to communicate the issue in such a fashion that people are not realizing that they're getting climate information. So the way I look at it is, if you are laughing first and thinking second, I got you. I got you. It's too late for you to put your wall back up. I'm already in. It's like a virus, okay? And that's what I want to be. I want to be a virus. I want to get in you and you don't even know I'm there until it's too late. And that is my goal with climate and my solution.
That's amazing. And I think we have a clip of you leaning into that laughter. And
yeah, look, by the way, this is my least favorite climate joke. This is the very first, I think this might be from, I don't know when it's from, but Climate Week, we had a climate comedy show. We had one just this couple days ago. It was well attended. It was fantastic. But I think this is like from one of my first, or this might be from my special, where I included some climate. But I really don't like this joke, but let's look at it anyway, okay? But it is good. I'm so happy that you are here and joining me on a beautiful spring night, or whatever the fuck we call this season now. Because I don't know what to call it anymore. But see, this is what people don't understand about what I call human-caused climate chaos. They call it climate change, but that's what climate change is about. You don't know what the fuck you're gonna get. Seriously, it's just like, spring is no longer spring, it's spring. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, you get one day it might be warm, the next day cold. Next day it's warm, next day cold rain. And that happens. That is a result of climate change, and that's what people don't understand, that that's what it's really going to do, is it's going to fuck up your seasons. All right, that's enough. That's enough of that. That's enough. We don't need any more. No, seriously, that's enough. Here's why, because that goes on, but that's the message. And the message there is, okay.
I guess they can't. There we go.
I guess they couldn't hear me. But I know you wanted to play the whole thing, but it's 2 minutes long. We don't have time for that. But the reason why I don't like that is because once I did it, I realized what I might be doing is giving the people the impression that weather is climate. That's what I don't like about that joke. And we all know in this room that climate and weather are two different things, but climate is the reason why we have crazy weather. So in terms of communication, if you're a scientist, you might call it extreme weather event attribution, right? Okay, that's what you call it, right? So my thing is like, stop that, don't do that, crazy ass weather, okay? Like, people understand that. The more simple you can make it, the better off we are. And I hate to say this, but the person who is really great at simplifying language and getting their message across, it's a hoax. It's Kate Marvel, total hoax. Everything she said, how could you believe her? It's very sad, very, very sad. And the reason why that's effective is because it's talking straight at a person. I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm just talking straight at you, okay? And we need to do that with this. The other thing I think we need to do is, honestly, for the people who are already sucked into the politicization of climate, we need to stop calling it climate change and actually call it trans weather. Because, let's be for real, okay? Because you call anything trans in America right now, somebody gonna try to stop it, okay? So.
Crazy.
So, that is my solution is, communicate to a point where it's top down and bottom up and we meet in the middle. See, and that's when it spreads out. So, I work with Kate, I take what she teaches me, and then I create content that makes it spread out so that I can talk straight at somebody. So now Kate doesn't have to figure out how she has to talk to the public. That's my job. You understand? So that's really my solution. That comes with collaboration, it comes with cross-pollination, and it comes with money, unfortunately, which nobody wants to put into, these ideas, but, it's very necessary. This is an existential threat, as we all know it, and it has to be addressed as such.
Yeah. So real quick, I know we're getting short on time. If someone gave you $5 million, what would you do with it?
Oh, man, $5 million? That's not enough.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. To tell you the truth, the first thing I would do is I would employ a bunch of writers, and I would start making short-form content that we would produce on a daily basis, 7 days a week. Short-form content, banging, 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 because right now what we have, and Kate knows this, is called the cosmic microwave background radiation, okay? It is the noise of the universe. It looks like noise, but it was one of the most significant discoveries of all time when it comes to astrophysics, right? And right now, that's what's happening with our communication. A lot of noise. So the way you cut through that is you slice through it with a constant assault. And that's what I would do with $5 million right now. Anybody got $5 million, please call me. Call me.
All right. So we're going to do 2 quick hit questions here. So, I mean, first off, we have to take advantage of this diverse perspectives on stage. And so as we think about the intersection of leading a city, the entertainment industry, and of climate science, what is one thing that you want someone else in a sector that is not yours to know? And we'll just, whoever wants to jump in, or if you want to.
So someone who's not in our sector.
So yeah,
should
what
know
would
about,
you tell? Yeah,
okay.
What would you want the climate science community or a leader of a city to know about climate solutions?
I would like the mayor to know that I am a briquette machine.
I love
Oh
it.
my God.
I am there for you, mayor.
I don't want to follow that one.
Yeah, I don't know if that can be followed.
I did want to piggyback off of something that you were saying, Chuck, which is that there's sort of like some subversiveness happening when you're not necessarily like barreling down on the topic. It's just kind of layered in. You laugh first and you think later. I actually really like that. And I think about other social justice issues like LGBTQ and how Will and Grace changed the perception of queer rights for millions of people. Even Joe Biden said that it influenced his perception of the queer community because he liked Will and Grace and thought it was funny, and then afterward realized, like, oh, maybe queer people are okay and deserve equal rights. And I think that sort of layered in, I don't want to say manipulation, but when you play the reality of life with real detail, people see and hear that. So when you think about the intersection of entertainment and climate solutions, maybe it's like your lead character rides a bike instead of drives a car, or they take a train, or they participate in a community garden. There's these little subversive things that you can do. And if I had $5 million, I would take a coalition and I would go to Netflix or Amazon and I would say, hey, I have these people who can pepper in things into your scripts to make them climate reality, you know?
Can I add something onto that? Peppering in?
Yeah.
Because I think in all of what you've said, there's one thing that I don't want us to overlook, and that is the impact of what goes on in the industrialized world on the rest of the world. Yeah. So climate justice and understanding that there has to be a shift is something that we can't take lightly, but we do. You know, when people talk about climate change, they very, very rarely consider the consequence of their actions, their day-to-day actions, and that could be a change. You know, if you were to bring in that humor and have people realize, well, I love seeing the lights of New York on, but what does that mean to a child who can't go to school in Uganda, you know, because of floods, because of climate? So maybe that's an angle that we could also bring in, that joining the dots between the person, in this case the West, or not just the West, the industrialized world, driving the Bentley and hitting that person on the bicycle and then saying to them, get up, because they can't on their own. Not because they're not worthy or they don't have dignity, but because it's an asymmetric situation and there's a need for climate justice.
Excellent.
I mean, that's hard to follow. I was just going to say, I wish people understood how much Mars sucks.
Yes.
Terrible.
Yes.
Terrible planet.
Yes. Well, with that, I know there's a lot of creatives and storytellers in the room and watching, and so I hope that sort of helped riff and begin to inform some of the stories that we can tell together collectively. And I think that we need to move towards. So this has been such a rich discussion. I think there's a book that I have thought about often recently, and it is, maybe some of you have read it, A Paradise Built in Hell, The Extraordinary Communities That Arise in Disaster. But it really elevates that in times of crisis, people rise, they come together in ways that they don't during other times, and they actually do it with profound joy. And this panel has been a joy. So thank you for bringing a slice of joy here as we all move forward towards the climate solutions together. Woo! Thank you.